All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live. We will be starting at 5 o'clock, but you all know the drill by now. Please tell us where you're viewing us from, and remember to tell your friends to join us. All right. So we have a very exciting afternoon ahead. So make sure, tell us in the chat where you are viewing us from, and also tell us what subject area you teach. If you teach at university, primary school, secondary school, high school, preschool, let us know in the chat where you are viewing us from, as we have Bobby and Annalisa with us for a very exciting topic about Parlay this afternoon. So we are going to start promptly in 2 minutes. Lovely to see people joining us. Remember to tell us where you're viewing us from. And we have some exciting news, but I'll give you all that news at 5 o'clock. All right. So Bobby and Annalisa, thank you very much for joining us. And I know we are looking forward to this session today.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thanks for having us. We're really excited about it. It'll be great.
Right, so we have 2 minutes. So Bobby, if you wanted, you could put up your slide. So at 5 o'clock exact, we are going to start. So people can begin to hear about this parlay and what it is, right? And of course, I was pretty excited because I teach French. So when I heard the name parlay, of course, it immediately struck a chord, you know, that we're going to speak.
Awesome. Exactly. That's actually where the name came from, but we'll get into that.
Yes. All right, so we have 1 minute to start time. So remember, please tell us where you are viewing us from, and thank you for spending this afternoon with us, or in some places it may be morning because we're not sure where you're viewing us from. So welcome wherever you are viewing us from. All right, so I think we can get started. So I would like to say officially, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are viewing us from, and welcome. Please tell us in the chat where you are viewing us from. And I will hand over very quickly to the very capable Annalisa and Bobby, who are going to tell us about this wonderful and innovative discussion forum, which of course has become, I mean, even more needed now, where a lot of us are teaching still in a remote setting or doing blended classes. And we have some really exciting news, both for our premium members as well as our regular members, who will, but you have to wait until the end to hear about that. All right, so Bobby and Annalisa, I'm handing over to you, and I'll see you at the end.
All right. Thank you, Leanne. Really appreciate it. So looking forward to sharing Parlay with everyone today. My name is Bobby. I'm the founder and CEO of Parlay, and I'll let Annalisa introduce herself too.
Hi, everyone. I'm Annalisa, calling in from Toronto, Canada, and I'm a teacher as well. I'm on the Parlay team. So I guess we'll start with Bobby, and then I'll be taking you through a walkthrough of Parlay a little later on.
Awesome. So I wasn't going to tell the story, but since Leanne mentioned it, that she was a French teacher once upon a time, or maybe still is. When we started Parlay, it was an idea that came in second year university when I was actually studying at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. And like a lot of students, I was really frustrated at being lectured at, both at university and in high school, and felt like I was always surrounded by really smart people, all the students in the class, and there was a really big missing opportunity to have meaningful discussions about what we were learning in the classroom and about the events and ideas that were shaping our world. And so it was that moment, I was sitting in an economics class that made me realize that something like Parlay probably needed to exist in the world. And the name Parlay did originate from the French verb, of course, which is to speak, and that's the central point of discussions. So I just want to tell that little story. So since then, Parlay has evolved a lot over the years, and we've built it into a tool that teachers in grades 5 through 12 mostly, but sometimes in the primary school as well, use to facilitate what we call meaningful, measurable, and inclusive discussions in the classroom. And we decided to focus on discussions for a number of reasons. And the first and foremost is that we think discussions are basically like a silver bullet in education. They increase learning outcomes. So John Hattie's research on visible learning, which is one of the biggest research studies ever done, asking the question, what actually works in education, shows that discussions have a 2x learning outcome, or 2x effect on learning outcomes compared to quote unquote traditional teaching strategies. So they move the needle in terms of student achievement. Moreover, discussions teach really important transferable skills, things like critical thinking and collaboration, and of course, communication skills, all these future skills that we read on the World Economic Forum and we talk about, and more even curriculums are being built around teaching future skills. And of course, in so many ways, discussions teach these. Discussions also teach us the essence of citizenship. At Parlay, we believe that thoughtful, open-minded citizenship, it really is centered around people putting their own ideas out there and having those ideas challenged with new and different perspectives, and integrating all those new ideas to come up with a better, more nuanced understanding of the world. And that's what it means to be a good citizen. All you have to do is go onto Twitter these days and find out what it means to be a bad citizen and see how much our public discourse has devolved. So we think that teaching kids how to have meaningful discussions is absolutely critical in preparing them for the 21st century. And then finally, social emotional learning is an increasingly something that's very important in education systems. They call it social emotional learning in the United States, of course. It takes a different form in many other education systems around the world. But ultimately, discussions teach social awareness. They teach us empathy for the perspectives and life experiences of others. And they teach us those very important interpersonal relationship skills. So the way that we see it is that if you have student-driven discussions that are inclusive of all voices and that are structured and substantive, then you can move the needle on all of these really important things as an educator. So we really take a very holistic view when it comes to integrating discussions into the classroom. So this is why we do it. And I'm going to pass it to Annalisa, who is very capable and will take you through a demo and talk you through how Parlay works. And then potentially maybe even get everyone onto a quick discussion as well. So I'll stop sharing my screen now and I'll pass it off to Annalisa.
All right, wonderful. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to take you through a demonstration of Parlay today. There are three main parts to the Parlay program and how Parlay helps teachers facilitate student-driven discussions. So we'll go through each of the three parts, and then we're actually going to try out a discussion as a group for everyone who's tuning in. You'll be able to try it out from the student perspective, and we'll get you all onto your own accounts. So first is the Parlay universe. So the first part of Parlay is basically a big lesson library or topic library where you can browse through and see examples of how other teachers have set up discussions in their classes. So you could actually use those examples. You can make any changes that you'd like, or you could even start from scratch and actually just make your own discussion prompts. And then once you take one of those examples, basically you run an online roundtable, and this is the written discussion on Parlay. So it's similar to a discussion board that you might already be familiar with on some other platforms, but what's most unique about it is that students could be anonymous to each other, so they could actually, they all get a secret identity from someone from history. So I could be Albert Einstein, you could be Martin Luther King or Cleopatra, and we're all having a discussion, we're all sharing our ideas openly, but the students don't know who's who. But the teacher always does. The teacher will always be able to see who's who. So we're going to test out the second one today, a little bit later on in the session. But again, this is the written discussion, lots of really interesting data that you could use. And this is the discussion that is really flexible. So you could run it as a homework activity, you could run it asynchronously, or you could do it during one of your synchronous class sessions as well. And then the last piece is the live roundtable. And so this is similar to a Socratic seminar or a Harkness style discussion, if anyone's familiar with with those types of activities. It's a verbal discussion where students are speaking up, they're sharing their own ideas, they're building on each other's ideas, and Parlay's there in the background to help structure the discussion and also gather some of the data in the background so that the teacher can go and give feedback. And of course, we could reflect as a group as well. So we'll be going through each of these today, and then we'll try out actually an online roundtable with the group that's tuning in. All right, so we're going to start in the universe. So if I go to universe.parlayideas.com, or if you just go to parlayideas.com and find, I believe the button is topics, then you're going to end up in the universe where there's tons of different topics that you could browse through. When you land on the homepage, you're going to see topics that are kind of related to what's going on in the world. So immunity passports or Earth Day. You could even go through and see easy icebreaker prompts. If you just want to test this out with a group of students, you want to see how it works, you might want to try one of these low stakes icebreaker topics. And then for your actual curriculum content, you could look depending on the subject that you teach. So English, history, social studies, science. If I click any of these, then it's going to show me all the different collections of discussion topics that we can look at, we can make any edits to those lessons that have been created. So for example, if I was teaching, let's say, a high school biology class or even chemistry, and we wanted to talk about some of the real world kind of issues going on around coronavirus, here are a lot of kind of science-based discussions that we could work from. Or if I'm teaching, let's say I'm teaching a poetry unit in English, then I can come in here and see all these different examples of topics that kind of go into poetry analysis or encourage students to look into some of these ideas. So let's look at one as an example. Let's say we go into the discussion topic, Harlem by Langston Hughes. The way that we usually set up the discussion topics is there's 4 main parts. So first off, we always have the learning goals. So what are the students learning, but what skills are they going to be practicing in this discussion? We'll usually give students some content. So in this case, we have an actual poem by the poet himself, but you might also include any pictures, videos, you can link Google Slides, you can embed PDF files. There's so many different types of media you can include, and this is what you would expect students to review before the discussion. And then we would get to discussion questions. So as much as possible, trying to ask open-ended questions or higher order thinking questions so that when students are responding, they're not all responding with the same answer, but you're getting lots of their ideas and their opinions that are brought into this discussion. And in this case, an analysis on the poem itself. And then last but not least, we usually give students peer feedback instructions. So once they submit their own idea, we're giving them very clear guidance on how to actually continue the conversation, comment on their peers' ideas, and sometimes we'll even give them sentence stems as well. So that's what a typical discussion topic looks like. Again, all of them are a little bit different. In the Parlay universe, you could search by keyword or search by the topic that you might be working on and see if another teacher has created something like this already. You can always bookmark these topics, or you could just click use this topic and use it directly in your classroom. So if I click use this topic, then it's basically going to take a copy of it from the universe and it's going to bring it into my class on Parlay. So I'm going to put this into my course. And now I basically have a full example of it or a full copy of it that I can make any changes to before I actually go ahead and invite my students. So I'm going to click edit, and this will allow me to add any links, pictures, files, videos. I can change up the actual text. Maybe I only want my students to look at the first 2 questions here today. Then I could change that up and save it. And then a couple other things you're going to choose. Do you want your students to be anonymous to each other? Usually teachers keep it on because it's super fun and students have a lot of fun with it. Of course, it creates a nice open environment for students to share their ideas and not really worry too much about people judging their ideas or judging their writing. It kind of opens it up a little bit for that. You can also change up assessment. So if this is the first discussion we're doing, I might only look for one criteria. Maybe I want the students to be citing textual evidence from the poem itself. So maybe we'll only look for one criteria and I'm only going to assess them on that. But of course, as you get more familiar, you might add more criteria or your specific standards that you're assessing. And then last but not least, you could choose your sentence stems that you want students to be thinking about when they go and actually respond to their peers in the discussion. So you might give them some sentence stems here. You might ask them specific questions. Can you build on this person's idea? What did you find interesting? And these are going to pop up right away when the student goes and sees other people's responses. And finally, when I'm ready to invite students, it's quite simple. You just click invite. And you can copy this link and share it with your students directly. If anybody's using Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams, you can click one of those buttons and it will actually prompt you to post this same link directly onto either Classroom or Teams. And then your students just click that link and it'll bring them right into the discussion once they log in with Google. All right. So next, I'm going to show you what a discussion looks like when it's actually finished. And then a little bit later on, we're going to get you all to have an opportunity to see what it looks like from the student view. So you'll be able to see what this written discussion looks like as a student. So here is a discussion that that is already finished. We had each of the students come in, they shared their response. And as you can see here, we have some pretty famous people in the group. We could see Cleopatra's in our discussion today. We got Martin Luther King, Rene Descartes, Charles Darwin. And so all of these are all real students. However, in this discussion, they're given the secret character from history. And as a teacher, I could always see who's who by clicking that eye icon. And that will basically show me the real names of each student. This is only available for the teacher. So students are still going to be going through, and unless they tell each other who they are, they will not know who's who in the discussion. So let's say we look at Rene Descartes' idea right here. I could see that he has written quite a bit. So there's his whole post. And then if I scroll below, I could see those guiding questions that I set up as a teacher are right there. And students are using these to think about when they go and actually leave comments. So we could see that William Shakespeare has responded to Rene Descartes, and so has Martin Luther King Jr. And students can basically go in and they could respond to the post itself. They could respond to the comments and kind of join in on the thread, or they could just come in and actually celebrate what somebody else has said and confetti will pop out. Now, let's say I really, really like what this student has written. I want to highlight it for the group. I could actually star it, and this will notify the whole class and kind of encourage students to come and look at Rene Descartes' idea. You might say, oh, this is structured really well, or I really like the comments that students are giving as feedback here. So I really want everybody to check that out. And then, of course, last but not least, you could always give assessment. So in the assessment is, or in this assessment section is where you can give students points based on the criteria you're looking for. So maybe I'm looking for citing textual evidence, or maybe I'm looking for their ability to collaborate with each other, and I can assess them directly. I can give them written feedback. Some teachers typically give common pieces of feedback across the class. So you could save your feedback in here and just add it right in. So that could make it a little bit more speedy for you. And then you could also see all of the comments that this one student has made in the discussion. So Rene Descartes actually in real life is Angela. So Angela wrote this really nice long post, and then below we could see she made 4 comments in the discussion. So I can go through and see how she's adding to her peers' ideas and giving them feedback as well. All right, and last but not least, this is the fun part. At the end of the discussion, you can open up the class summary, and students can see this too. We could see class-wide data, and you are able to or we're able to see as a group and reflect on this as a group. So we could see 100% or 100% of the students submitted, but only 78% of the class actually gave one comment. Alrighty, we have also the word cloud that's here. So here is where you are able to see the most popular words that came up in the discussion. So these are typically keywords or vocabulary items that the students use most often in the discussion. And you could actually click each one and you'll be able to see where it came up in the discussion. So you could see communities. Okay, many students mentioned communities. Some students mentioned opportunity or environment. So we could use this as a way to reflect on the discussion, or maybe tomorrow, before tomorrow's class, we might say, oh, what was our discussion about yesterday? Okay, let's look at this keyword cloud and kind of recall some of our prior knowledge, recall what we talked about yesterday. And kind of prompt that with your students. And then last but not least, we can also see this really beautiful chord diagram. So some of you might be wondering, okay, what does this actually tell us about the discussion? Basically, each student is a different color, and we'll be able to see which students have been commenting the most in the discussion. We could see the conversations that are going back and forth. And then we can also see who has responded to the comments. So for example, if I look here, Angela had made one comment to Mia and Mia responded. So we can see there's some back and forth discussion that's happening right here. And then at the end of the discussion, you can always see the table view of all this data. So your whole, all of your students in a class list, you can export this data back to either Google Drive or a CSV file. And so this could be helpful for you when you're doing your assessment and you want to export it all back to wherever you are housing those assessments. Alrighty, so that is the written online roundtable discussion. Like I said, this could be used in so many different ways. You could use this as a homework activity, as an asynchronous activity. You could do this during class as well. And what some teachers do is they'll actually assign the first half of this for homework. They'll say, okay, log on for homework, read through the resources and write your own ideas, but don't leave any comments yet. And when we log on to class, or when we come to class tomorrow, we're going to use that class time to respond to other people's ideas and read through what other people wrote and respond to the comments of other people giving us feedback. And of course, this gives you as a teacher a little bit more time to reflect on the data and highlight some really interesting conversations that happened throughout the discussion. All right, so that's the written discussion. I'm going to quickly show you what the live discussion looks like, and then we'll actually try out a discussion as a group. So for the live discussion, I'm going to briefly show you what it looks like from teacher view, and then we could switch over and I'll show you what it looks like from student view. So from teacher view, basically, we might have already, I would have set up this discussion. We would have already maybe had a little discussion about the topic that we're working on. Maybe we had an online roundtable and students were able to write their ideas. And now we're going to be ready to have a verbal discussion and have students talk to each other out loud. If you're in a remote setting, so if all students are kind of in different places and logging on to your class at the same time, you might switch the audio on so that you could still hear each other. However, if you're working in a physical classroom where everybody's in the same class, you would keep the audio off and all of your students are just going to have their device out while we're still looking at each other, we're still talking. So before we start, I would probably give my students some questions to think about, maybe some resources, and of course I would invite them with the invite link. And then once we're ready to actually invite them, and once students log on, then they're able to actually start tapping into the discussion when they have something to say. So I'm just gonna show you what it looks like from student view. I'm going to log in as a student here. I'm going to click the link that my teacher sent me, and I could see on my student screen, I could see that Monday's live discussion. This is our discussion here. We have our questions that I'm going to have students think about. And before we start, I might say, okay, everybody think about think about what you might want to say out loud and jot your ideas down here. And then once we're ready to start, then I would say, okay, once you're ready, you can start to tap in when you have something to say out loud. So this is kind of like putting up your hand, but instead of putting up your hand, you're tapping in with one of these 4 buttons. So new idea, challenge, build on, or question. So if I click one of these buttons, let's say I tap in with a question. Now everyone in the class can see that Alex would like to ask a question. Jordan has tapped in here as well. Alice has tapped in to build on what someone has said, and Vihan has tapped in with a new idea. And so what the teacher does is the teacher is able to add these students to the queue. So we know who's speaking now and who's gonna speak up next. So right now we have Alice is speaking now, Vihan's gonna go up next. And the teacher can basically go in and choose there, or you can assign a student moderator to decide who's up next. And last but not least, students really love this. You can actually encourage other people to speak up. So if I'm in this discussion, I see my friend Jordan, or I see another student here who normally doesn't speak up, I can vote for them and encourage them to speak up. If I really like what Alice is saying, I can give her a high 5. So this makes students feel really connected to what's happening. They're driving the discussion themselves, and they're encouraging each other in the process. Now, if I go back over to teacher view, I'm going to show you again what it looks like from teacher view, so I can show you how to actually manage the queue in the discussion. So once I have students who are tapped in, I can basically remove them from the queue or add them to the queue so we know who's going to be up next. And then for all of the rest of my students who are not tapped into the discussion, I might want to give them a nudge and encourage them to speak up. So I see Afia here. I could check out Afia's notes. She has some notes. I could send her a nudge and say, hey, Afia, you have a really great idea on your notepad. Why don't you speak up and share it so everyone can hear you? I can see, I can make my own teacher notes. I can assess students as well. I could see how many times Afia has been tapping into the discussion. And then I could also make Afia the moderator. If I wanted her to kind of take leadership and control who's speaking in the queue, then I can give her those controls. And of course, you could always give feedback to all the students during the discussion or after the discussion. All right, and then a couple other things here. So we have polls. Of course, you could send out polls throughout the discussion. That's a great way to ask the whole class one question and see how they're thinking about the topic. And as a teacher, if I wanted to tap in, I can go ahead and tap in, and this will freeze everyone's screens. So you can kind of contribute, maybe give them some feedback, give them some pointers, and then tap out and have them continue the discussion. I just saw there's a question in the chat, how many students can participate in a discussion at one time? So for a discussion like this, we'd recommend keeping your discussions to around anywhere from 15 to 30 students in a discussion. Once you get a little bit more than that, it's going to become a little difficult to get everyone to speak. So you might want to, if you have a class of 100, you might want to break your class into 3 or 4 groups, assign one person to be the moderator, and then have the students be running their kind of smaller group discussions. That's just going to give them a little bit more opportunity to speak up and be more involved in the discussion. And I would say it's probably appropriate both for the online roundtables and the live roundtables to keep it to around 15 to 30 students. You can technically use more if you wanted to test it out, but we recommend keeping it within the 15 to 30 student range. All right, and then last but not least, in the live roundtable, you can see the class summary. So we could see across the whole group how many people are participating. What does this visual look like? We see how long students were tapped in for. We could also see how long they spent as a speaker in the discussion. We could see how many times they've tapped in on average. So I might say to the class, oh, if you've only tapped in 11.5 times, okay, think about how you might want to improve next time. Should you be speaking up more, or should you kind of leave some space for other people or encourage other people to speak up? when it comes to our types of tap-ins, we could see we're really good at bringing up new ideas, but maybe we need to work on building on each other's ideas or respectfully challenging the ideas of other people, maybe even asking questions to push the discussion along a little bit further. And then last but not least, you could see a visual breakdown of how each individual student has tapped into the discussion. So we could see Alice here, she's really good at bringing up new ideas. Ivan, it looks like he likes to challenge people's ideas a lot, and we could look at that breakdown as well. All right, all of these discussions can be duplicated. So if you are running a bunch of small group discussions with your class, basically what you would do is set up your prompt, set up your questions, any resources that you'd like, both in the online and the live roundtable. And then you could just come up here and duplicate your discussion into either the same class or a different class. And that will make a direct copy of the discussion, but it will generate a new invite link so that each group has a unique invite link that they're using. Alrighty, so at this time, I'm actually going to invite you all to join a discussion. I am going to just quickly, I've created 2 discussion groups, and I'm going to actually put them in the chat so everybody is able to see them. There we go. All right. So depending on the month of your birth, I'd like you to either join group 1 or group 2 in this discussion. Basically, you could click the link that I've just put in the chat, and this is going to open up a new screen where it's going to ask you to log in with Google. It's also going to ask you to select, are you a teacher or are you a student? So once you choose, are you a teacher, are you a student? I recommend that you choose teacher. This is going to generate a teacher account for you. Even though you're joining as a student, you could still choose teacher, and then later on, you could come in and join other discussions, or you could create your own discussions afterwards. So please choose teacher. Click the appropriate link in the chat. If anybody's watching this later on and you'd like to join, this can be run as an asynchronous activity as well. So by all means, go ahead and click the appropriate link there. And then once you're into the discussion, you should be seeing on the left-hand side, the prompt that I've set up. And then on the right-hand side, that is the area that you could actually start to write your response. So once you're into the discussion, once you're able to click the link, then you'll be able to actually join this discussion. I'm going to put the instructions up here on my screen as well so you could see. So you could enter this code at parllayideas.com, or you could choose one of the links that I put in the chat there. And as we're waiting for others to join, again, I'll just explain to you what the student screen is going to be looking like. So basically, on the right side of your screen, if you open this up, you should see the area where you could write your response. And on the left-hand side is where you could review the prompt. You should also see your secret identity. So I've kept anonymity on for this discussion. So you'll all be randomly assigned a secret identity if you join this discussion. And this would be different for each new discussion that you enter. So everybody's identity is hidden. The teacher or whoever's organizing the discussion will still see who's who. But you will be able to get the character of someone from history. And we have a list of about 200 different secret characters from history. We have poets and scientists, engineers, and political leaders, all different people from all around the world. So it's usually an interesting way to learn more about historical figures, especially if you're teaching a social studies or a history class. And so normally once you share the link with your class, you normally say, okay, give them some time, depending on how long the prompt is. You might say that you're going to give them 5 minutes or longer to write their response. Check out the criteria. You can include any links in your response as well. I'm going to show you now what it looks like from that student view in case anybody's joining in and would like to see that. So I just clicked the link from the chat and I was able to, I'm able to log in. And then once I log in, then this is where you'll see on the left-hand side that prompt that has been set up. And then on the right-hand side is the area where students can respond. We could also see the criteria that's here, so the students can review the criteria before they actually join. And then I could see my secret identity would be Julius Richard Petrie, who was the German microbiologist generally credited with inventing the Petri dish. Cool. All right, so I would be Julius in this discussion. No one else knows who I am. I'm Julius. I could start to write my response here in response to these questions. And again, I can include links, pictures, videos. I can upload PDFs. I can do emojis. For any math or science teachers, you could also include any of the symbols as well, especially if you're giving students little formulas to think through and kind of come up with a solution for. This could be really handy. You could do tables, and then you'll also see the word count. So you could say to your students, I want everybody to write at least 100 words for their original post for the submission. All right, so if anybody's just joining, feel free to click the link that I put in the chat there. I just put it as Annalisa M, that's my name. And if you click one of the appropriate links, one of the go.parlayideas.com links, then you'll be able to open up and see what this discussion looks like from the student perspective. So I'm just gonna post it here again, just in case anybody did not get it. That is, there's the link where you can click on and you could join in to see what the discussion looks like from the student perspective. Again, if you are clicking the link, just click one of them here, either group 1 or group 2. It's going to ask you to log in with Google or Microsoft. And you could basically then choose that you are a teacher. This is going to generate your free account for you. Even though you're joining this discussion today, you'll still get this account that you could explore with and set up discussions later on with. All right, we'll just wait a couple more minutes to see if others are going to join this one. Thank you everyone for joining this discussion. And again, if you click the link in the chat, then you'll be able to see what this discussion looks like from the student view. So again, just choose group 1 or group 2. Just once you click that link that's in the chat, then you'll be able to log on, you'll be able to see the student view, you can write a quick little response in response to those 2 questions that are there, and then you'll be able to submit your response. Now, these 2 questions that I've set up, one is a little bit of a fun low stakes question, which is a great way that we often encourage teachers to start with Parlay with, and that's a low stakes discussion topic. So who would you like to have dinner with? Choose one person that you'd like. That usually comes up, you get some really interesting responses with that. And then the second question is, how might you actually use Parlay in your instruction? So what types of discussions might you want to try? Would you want to use this as a reflection activity after you teach an interesting concept? Would you want to use this to make connections to the real world? Would you want to use this to have a debate amongst your students and encourage them to share what side they're on? Or maybe you could tell them, you can split the class in 2 and have them debate either side. And obviously, if you're an English teacher, very easy to have a little discussion about either writing or about a particular text as well. So we could reflect after a certain chapter, or we could do a character analysis. All of these different ideas you could use. So once you're ready to submit, then you can go ahead and submit your ideas, and that's where you'll be able to go and see the responses of other people. You'll notice that students cannot see the responses of other people before you write your own idea. So this is really helpful to make sure that you're encouraging them to be original with their thinking and submit something of their own ideas before they get to start building on other people's ideas. So once a student submits, this is going to allow them to actually join the discussion and see other responses. Right now, I'm the only one in this response or in this discussion, but when other people join in, they'd basically be able to see my post here, just the one that I just wrote just now, and then they can go in and they can actually build on my ideas. They could comment on my ideas using these sentence stems. So of course, if anybody's an English teacher, those sentence stems are really helpful, particularly for English language learners, and giving them that kind of scaffolding to be able to start to write on their own, write their own sentences. Alrighty, so I'm going to go in and briefly just look at some of the data from the discussion. Looks like I could see a few people are unsubmitted, but once students actually do submit their ideas, then you'll be able to see their ideas written just like this. So for anybody who's still watching, but they're not looking at the student view, I'll just kind of be reviewing what this discussion is looking like from the teacher view. So of the people who have joined this discussion, I could see someone, Eiji Tsuburaya, who, let's see, was a Japanese special effects director for Godzilla. So this person just submitted their response. And then I could also see, let's see, Dewi Sartika, who is an Indonesian pioneer for education for women. All right, so I have these two people have submitted their responses. If I click to open it up, then I can see that whole response and I could start to leave a comment underneath. And an interesting feature that a lot of teachers like is you can actually see if this person has edited their idea. And in case they went and added their idea afterwards, or maybe they edited some of the spelling or something like that, you could see the first version that they submitted, and you could also see the second version that they've submitted. As a teacher, you'll be able to hide submissions if somebody writes something inappropriate or kind of goes outside the bounds of what's acceptable for class. You could always hide it and encourage them to go back and edit it and maybe change up the wording a little bit. And then as a teacher, if I really wanted to draw attention to it, then I can highlight it for the group and I could say, okay, this person's post was structured very beautifully and there's a really interesting conversation that went on below. I could star that, and anybody who's in this discussion right now is going to get a notification saying the teacher has highlighted a model submission. Alrighty, so as the discussion's going on, you could always check the summary and you could see the word cloud that's being generated. So here we can see our keyword cloud. We see fun, we see anonymity, we see characters, perspective, Obama. And as a teacher, you could always edit these keywords. So you can go in here and say, okay, actually, you know, parlay was not that important of a word for this discussion. I could update that word cloud. And also this word cloud is going to automatically generate to a few different languages as well. So I believe right now French will work and Spanish. and Italian as well. So if you're having a discussion in French, for example, then this word cloud will generate your most popular French words. So again, really helpful for vocabulary and really including the most popular themes or vocabulary in the discussion. Alrighty, coming up, we are almost ready for a Q&A section. If anybody has any specific questions, we will be getting to that soon. A couple other things I kind of just wanted to highlight about Parlay as you are exploring and you find different ways that you might want to use this with your class. So first, you could always come and ask us questions here. We're pretty good at responding. So if you're not really sure about something, you want to ask a question, then you can come here and you could send us a message. We're pretty good at responding. You could also search answers in our knowledge base. And you could even suggest some topics that you think we should do with our class. We should create for the universe so that you could use them. And next, I did want to include one of our exciting giveaways. So anybody who's watching this session, actually, if you've created your account already, then you're able to use this upgrade code and get an extended trial for your Parlay account. So I'm going to keep these instructions up here for a few minutes, but you could basically use the upgrade code 21 and then century with a capital C. So 21st century, and this will basically upgrade your account so that you have free access, free unlimited access for the next few months. And then after that, then you'll just be bumped back to the typical trial. Right now, there's no difference in the features in the trial version. So you'll be able to try this out as much as you'd like, and basically try this out with students, see how they like it, get some feedback, and go from there. So here are the instructions for how to do that. Basically, once you log in and create your trial account, then you can go and click upgrade, and that will allow you to enter the school code 21st century. All right, I'm wondering if I'm just going to check here to see if we had any specific questions. Leanne, feel free to pop in if you had any specific questions as well.
I think most of the questions that were asked, you got them in the session, but I will go through and just double check if there are any specific questions. But I do think that you did such a fantastic job that you answered all the questions along the way. And we have some persons commenting that it's awesome for an assessment, very user-friendly. They like the recall with the word cloud, that it's great for closure for a lesson, great for classroom management. They love the detailed assessment that it gives, the feedback. So I think a lot of people are very excited to try this 2-month upgrade. And I would also like Annalisa, for our premium members, you have a little surprise that you want to tell them now.
Yes, we will actually be giving away 1 full year extended upgraded license for 2 premium members. So we will be doing that draw after the session today. Once we have the list and are able to draw from the list, then 2 lucky winners are going to be able to get full access to Parlay for a full year. So best of luck to everyone. And if you don't win, that's okay. You could still take advantage of the extended trial, and I'll keep these instructions up for another minute or 2 if you'd like to try it out with your class, see if you like it. This is free for online roundtables, the written types, or the live roundtables, the verbal discussions as well.
Actually, I do have a question, Annalisa, for foreign languages. Sure. Always something that we ask. Accents. How do we put in accents? Or is it possible to put in accents?
Yeah, good question. So when you're in the text editor, so when you're typing in the discussion, or when you're creating the discussion prompt, you should be able to enter the accents based on your keyboard. We don't have, right now, we don't have any symbols or the ability to add the accents on top, but if you copy and pasted text, for example, and put it in there, or if your keyboard allowed for certain accents, then it should still work in there. Does that make sense?
Yes. So we should be able to use the old codes that we normally use.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions outside of the ones that, as I mentioned, you would have answered already. And I think, based on the feedback, that persons are really excited to try out Parlay. And I can see it being used really well, not just in the remote setting, but also in a classroom setting, and to encourage students who are particularly shy, because I know sometimes we have those students who have really great ideas, but they would never put up their hands and say, because, they just will feel really weird to do it. So I can see this really encouraging students to share. And I love the anonymous feature that it gives in terms of, students not necessarily having to put their names out there so they can share an idea, but it just still knows who shared the idea. So I think that is it. And we really would like to say thank you very much to you and Bobby for coming and sharing. And I think we had a really fantastic session. So,
of course.
And I do hope that maybe we can have another session at some point in time, because I'm pretty sure there is a lot more that you can tell us about Parlay going forward.
Of course, definitely. I'll just put up here the website if anybody's missing it or tuning in afterwards, or you could also find us on social media as well and follow along to see what we're doing. We'd love to hear how you're using Parlay in your classes, or if you have any questions whatsoever, we're here to help and help you get started.
Yes, and just a few more comments. Somebody said this is awesome for social studies. This is definitely a tool that I would use in my work. This is an excellent tool to use in the classroom. I can see my students enjoying this, and I'm excited to try this. So just a few more comments coming there. And I think you did a really fantastic job in presenting. So hence the reason you answered all our questions up front.
So wonderful. Well, thank you for welcoming us to join this community and share what we have to contribute. So if there's any time in the future that anybody wants to learn more, we are certainly open to it.
Excellent. Okay, so have a good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much. We will keep in touch. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.